Hello there. Me, Sage, you, universe, God. It's the wee hours of the morning, and I have decided that I needed to record a follow-up to my last sort of solo podcast. I believe I titled it, "It's Time to Stop Being Afraid," which I still concur with that title, certainly. And what I've discovered since recording that podcast is still a whole lot of fear, still a whole lot of fear in me, and some deeper layers to what it was that or what it is that I need to share at this juncture in the creation of what we have come to call the Helen Keller Spiritual Life Collaborative, and this new effort to be spiritual community that I am in the midst of helping to birth into the world. I shared this in our Thursday night group last night, this growing sense that I have, this feeling that I have, that this awareness that I have, that that life is being life inside of me and inside all of us in a much bigger way than our egos allow us to recognize. The teacher David Hawkins describes it in this way that, and I describe it in this way too. Life has been evolving on this universe for a millennia and doing its thing, becoming creatures that grow and reach the sun and walk the earth. And then all of a sudden we human beings and our egos have developed, and this life is living through us in that same spontaneous, powerful way. We call it divine providence in the Swedenborgian tradition. It is moving on and in and of itself. That is where all the power of life lives. And that the ego just jumps in and takes credit for that activity. Takes credit and then tries to, parade itself as this powerful being that can shape and mold life. And maybe I'll link the talk where he talks about this, because I just love the way he describes it. It's just like, here's all this power of creation happening, and it's just unfolding, and the ego is just like, that was me. That was me. I did that. And I so identify with that. And I so identify with the kind of the power of being able to do that. I mean, the ego is an incredible development, right? But the flip side of the feeling of pride and energy and excitement and power that comes from claiming credit, on the flip side of that, which I'm experiencing now, is terror and overwhelm when the ride really gets going. And it feels to me right now like the ride is really getting going. And something wants to be created. I don't know if I've chosen the right name, if the Helen Keller Spiritual Life Collaborative is the right name, but something wants to be created through me and in me and with me. And my ego is terrified at this prospect. When my ego starts to think that it's in charge of this thing and responsible for it, it is just like losing its mind. And perhaps that's a good thing. And perhaps this whole ride is what's going to finally, kill it for good. But I want to share that perspective with you. I need to say it out loud to my friends, my community, to others who might be joining along in this effort, to make very clear that I am just doing my best to hold a whole lot of energy and life that I myself am not creating and managing. And I I don't want to create it. I don't want to manage it. I I can't manage it. And I very much want it to live far beyond the limits of my ego and my sense of, you know, how things should be. I wonder if that helps you to trust what I'm up to, or if it terrifies you and makes you feel like I'm even a more of a suspicious character. I know when I say that out loud, my soul gets it. My soul is like, yeah, that's what's happening right now. It's like so clear. I mean, here it's middle of the night and I'm recording this. I'm tormented by this. I have been pulled along a journey for like the last 3 years, longer than that, but in an even more intense way over these last 3 years that has not been under my control. I've been riding like a wild horse, desperately trying to find a way to do it faithfully and fully, while my kind of manager ego mind kind of loses its shit a whole lot of the time. And my soul feels that truth and gets that truth, and my soul trusts that that's actually like why we're here. Like this is how life works. Life is doing life, and life is calling us and moving us to do things we don't expect. And my spiritual tradition as a person who stands in a lineage of, you know, people like Emanuel Swedenborg and Jesus and the prophets and all of the, you know, there's certainly a lot of evidence that this is how this works, right? Every single person that we revere and that we honor, that's kind of helped move this story of divinity forward has at some point recognized that it wasn't them doing it, that there was something more to the story, something much more. And that's how it feels in me right now. It's this tidal wave of energy, of life that is, and I'm just this tiny little ego going, okay, I guess I'll be in charge of that. It's just, it's a crazy endeavor, but I feel quite sure it's a holy one. And so I'm doing my best. And my ego is terrified of this. And I'm becoming more and more aware of why, what the ways that I have been formed, the ways my ego has been formed to believe things operate, and what my responsibility is, and how that formation is causing so much resistance in me that is making my life really, really challenging at the moment, and has been making my life really challenging for quite some time. This is what I spoke about a bit in the last podcast, that my formation as a minister holds a lot of boundaries, even as a Swedenborgian minister, and we Swedenborgian ministers are misfits in the bunch. But even with that unique niche space that I found to inhabit, there's still a huge amount of head in my formation. Head, and certainly not a lot of, I have not received a lot of examples of other people kind of guiding me along the path who have affirmed or who have encouraged me to, really like listen and let go and surrender to the divine life. Instead, I have had a lot of mentors and teachers and who have kind of taught me how to look at how Swedenborg surrendered to the divine life, and to become an expert in his vision, or to look at how Jesus walked and lived, and to, explore it all from explore it all as if it existed outside of myself in these holy texts. And again, I think it was all worth it, and the things I found in those texts have all helped me to start to recognize it in myself. So no time has been wasted. And this is a particularly poignant juncture because I don't know how it's all going to fit. I don't know how it's all going to work. I don't know. My little manager ego self doesn't quite, is only catching glimpses of this larger movement, which in its essence, as I feel it and as I seek to describe it to others, this movement in me is really about, on the one hand, my particular life and how I am living an authentic, integrated life for myself in a way that has no bearing on other people. I mean, other than the people who are going to interact with my particular life. So it has a huge bearing on my husband, my kids. It's about my own coming to awareness of the choice that I always have in the present moment, which is always here, to really accept life fully, to see my life as sacred and worthwhile and holy, all the time, to show up to whatever shows up in my life, whether that's the thing that's sort of been the most challenging to orient myself to finally is showing up to my feelings, and also showing up to the the struggle of this world. Oh my gosh. It's a lot to take in at this time. And I'm learning to. And I'm making progress. I mean, one thing that gives me confidence that I'm not going totally off the rails is that I am this journey is taking me into deeper relationship with myself and my husband and my kids. It's bringing improvements into my home life. I am slowly chilling out and showing up and getting I'm growing. I can feel that I am growing, and I'm learning to be in the process of growth. I'm learning to be in a process of learning all the time, and I feel like more insights are coming in all the time. I'm becoming more aware of the effect I have on others and the old patterns that I play out, and I'm just in that process of, oh, there's another one. Oh, is that how I want to be? Let's look at that. Let's feel that. Ooh, let's see. Oh, do I have to keep that one? Can we let that one go? It's not a finished endeavor by any means, but especially with my beloved husband, who is someone who is a deep human who does his work. We're finding ways to do our work together. We're finally figuring that. I mean, we've been doing that, and I think it's notching up a level because I've started to be more humble and willing to look at myself. So anyway, that's the primary work that this whole journey that I'm on is motivating. And in addition to that is this effort to build a new collaborative space in the world that I might be a part. And this motivation feels also kind of beyond me, and is very much motivated because of where I am inhabiting this planet as a Swedenborgian minister, someone charged with carrying forward the vision and life of the Swedenborgian Church. in the world. And I cannot help but see a deep resonance with what is going on inside of me and the vision that Emanuel Swedenborg had and shared with the world. The vision of a new church. A new church that wasn't just like a new church down the block, but a global kind of new paradigm of what it means to be a human being. A new paradigm exemplified by the vision of the holy city, New Jerusalem, where finally, after this long, winding human journey that we have been on, finally, we come together in the holy city. All the tribes of the earth, all the people who are different, find a way to come together in the holy city, to be in the light of that bejeweled place. To me, that metaphor, that image, that is totally vibrates at the same level as my heart. This is what it feels like on the inside, to be turning towards integration and welcome and presence in my particular life as I am, because it requires me in my particular life to welcome everything that is. And so that smaller microcosm is, there's a deep resonance between that microcosm of me having this holy city inside that welcomes all of life, and then what might be manifest between one another within the world. And I feel excited and moved and inspired and called to this prospect of creating a new kind of spiritually collaborative community where we get to all be doing this individual work, be on this individual journey of integrating our own selves and meeting the moments of our own particular lives, coming to love and accept the particular manifestation of life that we've been given, and then doing that work with each other in collaborative and creative ways. What I have come to see after 20 years of being a Swedenborgian minister is that the substance of the fact that this vision of a new church has had such a profound impact on the larger world, on important individuals who have then lived incredible lives on the planet and taught incredible things and influenced the expansion of consciousness that now all of us are benefiting from. The comparison of that, the way the new church has lived on that level, to how the new church has lived on this small denominational level that I've been mostly operating in for 20 or 30 years. The people behind me are representatives of that larger, not larger, I mean, this is a small diaspora of people on the grand scale of humanity, who have read Swedenborg or been inspired by Swedenborg. And again, whether it was reading Swedenborg that opened up this wisdom, or they were already on their way to finding this wisdom on their own and happened to see I mean, how many of us, I think we all are coming to understand that truth is inside. And when we hear of someone else say it or read it from a book, we get that confirmation that we already knew something and someone else is saying the same thing we knew. Did William Blake learn something from Swedenborg in his intellectual mind, or did he see and feel something in what Swedenborg was saying that resonated with a revelation and a knowing that was already in him, that was already emerging in him? I mean, as I started this whole conversation describing life is living us in this powerful way, and we're just these little tiny, egos taking credit for it. What Swedenborg witnessed and experienced, of course, was bigger than him. And if this wave of insight and knowing was rising up and awakening him, it was likely rising up and awakening others, and has continued to. So Carl Jung's another example. I mean, he would not have called himself a Swedenborgian. Swedenborgians have done a good job of learning about the writings or the works that he was exposed to, and like to sort of take credit that it was Swedenborg's vision of correspondences that inspired his teaching about archetypes. And it's like, okay, yeah, maybe, sure. And maybe this idea is just true. And Swedenborg said it in his way, and Jung said it in his way, and their ideas have mixed and percolated and changed our world to the point where now we can engage with the world through these symbols. And much of what Swedenborg wrote and about how the inner world works was Carl Jung took further and described in ways that became more practical for engaging the inner life and going through this process of growth and integration. Of course, then there's Helen, my leader in this charge, a human who definitely seems to be kind of egging me on from the spiritual realm. And she took Swedenborg's writings and was inspired and moved and changed, and it gave her just this, she speaks so gratefully for the way they impacted her. And she went off and did what she did with that impact, with those treasures, but never really found a way to interact with the body of the denomination. It wasn't really of use to her. But was she not an example of the new church in the world? A human being kind of recognizing their internal belovedness and their power and living it boldly in the world. I found out recently from Rebecca Esterson that at one point, I guess Helen contacted a New Church Society about the possibility of a New Church woman coming to live with her. And sounds like it never panned out. But man, I feel like I missed my invitation, because I would have liked to have that opportunity. And to me, it speaks to how she, like I am coming to see that the primary invitation of this spiritual life is my own ability to see the continuity of life and to show up to all of it in a stance of worship, of surrender, of presence. That I love that she wanted to have a woman come and live with her. Like, that would have been a way for her to explore these ideas and what it means to be church in an intimate way, in a accompanied way. Anyway, and so then there's some other guys here. Yeah, D.T. Suzuki and Johnny Appleseed, inspired, resonating, but then also going on their own journey. And that's what we need to do, friends. Go on our own journeys. And we are all on, that's what's true about the world right now, right? Is anybody really fully, 1000%, tied into one particular community anymore? One particular church? It seems to me like the only people who maybe fit that bill are really isolated from society because they're within a church community. Seems like most of us are kind of going it on our own, and we're gathering information from so many sources, and we're forging our own paths right now. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. There's so many wonderful humans that I am so grateful for, that I have stumbled upon on YouTube or the internet, just sitting up at 2 a.m. like me, telling their story, sharing the wisdom that they're gaining. And it's part of what gives me confidence to do this. It feels to me like what we are seeing on the planet is exactly what Swedenborg prophesied was about to occur, where evils were going to come to the surface, this kind of clear seeing of all of the temptations of this human life, which I don't know about you all, but this current moment and our political climate to me is just this parade of egos gone haywire. And many of us are being given the opportunity to look and see the truth of our human mind, where this story ends if we continue to allow our little credit-taking egos to run the show. And simultaneously with this ego parade there's human people waking up and recognizing their oneness, recognizing that they're just this little self and that life is doing something way bigger. And they're recognizing the freedom that they have to tell about their lives and choose how they will live. I think a lot of us are waking up to our responsibility. I mean, this is part of it. It's a paradox, I suppose, because on the one hand, it's a recognition that life is doing something way bigger than my little identity can hold or manage. And simultaneously, that part of me that does have freedom, that has free will to act or to choose how to meet the moment, kind of has the ability to choose to ride this wave with gratitude and appreciation and openness and acceptance, or with rejection and fear and hostility. That's where my freedom really ends. That's a lot of freedom. This is at the heart of Swedenborg's message, right? We have the ability to choose between heaven and hell. And it's a choice that's made in an instant, and it's a choice of acceptance or rejection, really, in large part. And we're seeing the effects, I think, of generations of rejection. This whole enterprise we've been on to become a civilized species has been one of lifting up some ideals over others, and then all of us furiously, working to fulfill those ideals to the detriment of our actual experiences of life, to the point where many of us, I think, likely don't even know what the actual experience of our lives are. When I look back, when I think about my life and it's been a journey, and I do want to get into more of my life story. I feel like it's part of the work in the next coming few years. But I'll just say that I'm when I think back to myself before 2020, which is really when this started to shift. 2021 actually is when this really started to shift for me. I was really just trying to be good all the time. I was just trying to be good. And I think there was this part of me that I've finally become grounded in was always there. It wasn't like I didn't have a soul or anything before 2021. It wasn't like I was, not loving people and doing good in the world and feeling the joys of life. I had all kinds of experiences that were beautiful. And I can almost put myself back inside and observing life. Is this the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do? To the point where I was alienated from any sense of just doing, any sense of being able to just respond to life. And I feel one of the kind of most poignant places this showed up that is really hard to confess is around the role of minister and this strange reality of ministerial expectations called pastoral care. Because in the communities I served, there was a natural connection to people and love that happened on its own when I was just being a human and with other humans. And I think that's actually where where my love was truly expressed. And when it came to like doing pastoral care, like who to call and who needed what, because one of the things about the world today is, at least in my experience in the places I served, it was never actual humans like asking for support. It was always, third humans expressing their worries about someone, and would you check on, maybe you should check on them. Or I know some of my colleagues suggested you have a list of everybody and you call them at certain times. And do you know how stressed out all of that process made me? I feel like I wasn't really motivated by love and care, or I wasn't able to be, because I was like, did I cross the list off in the right way? Did I see the person at the right time? I mean, just so much stress and strain, feeling like there was some right way to do this that could manage. And I think it was a missed opportunity. And that's just one example, but like all of my choices, what's the right choice? And so often making choices because my mind said, this is a good choice. Even like while my heart was like wanting to jump out of my body, was miserably unhappy. But my little manager self, like, this is the right thing and you will do this. And if you're feeling miserable, that's probably a good thing. That's probably something you'll learn from this experience, Sage. Don't worry. And believe me, I did learn. But just so much self-betrayal that occurred over the course of my life, and that I am assuming is occurring over the course of many of our lives until we finally start to recognize that, or to go through this process of recognizing the limits of this manager egoic mind. Until we start to wake up, until we start to grow and deepen. And really, in many ways, it's a letting go of this selfish orientation that really does motivate this, like, am I right? I mean, I wanted to be right because I wanted to be good, because I wanted people to love me and approve of me, and I wanted to belong. I mean, it's all positive motivations, but they were ultimately selfish ones. And I think all of us, this is one of the foundations of our tradition, is that all of us are born in selfishness. That's part of how this works. If we weren't selfish, we wouldn't survive. Like, we have to have an orientation towards self preservation. And as our world has become more complicated, self-preservation has now expanded. It's not about necessarily getting enough food or shelter. It's getting enough status, getting enough degrees, finding a job, doing it exactly right. I mean, just like, that's sort of the opportunity of this moment, is the expectations of what is required for self-preservation have just, I think, compounded by every generation. We've just added more, to the point where we're all kind of, we either have the choice of finally waking up to the insanity of all of that, which is what's another way of describing this process I'm in, or we really go insane, or we become totally overwhelmed, and so we seek to blame others. I mean, I think all of the conspiracy theories and all of the chaos of this moment is likely tied to this overwhelm. And so many, right now, there's also so many conflicting I mean, you just can't, I was able to live that way for 43 years, I suppose, without totally losing my mind. But at 43, finally, my brain broke, and or spirit shone through. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, different ways to call it, things. But the pandemic too. I mean, that was another that helped us along. And I just feel like that's probably true for so many other people on this planet is we finally broke. We finally recognized that this was all too much and there must be something more true about who we are than all of these competing expectations and ideals. So something is happening in me that I believe is happening in lots of humans. I think it's happened in humans from the past, and maybe people like William Blake and Johnny Appleseed and Helen, people who have just been like, have just recognized the absurdity of the roles that society doles out, or the expectation that society doles out, recognize that that's not the holy path, and just done their own thing, gone their own way. And they've shown us that's possible. And now it's time for like all of us to do that. And if I know anything about how, you know, I almost was a math major before I went down the rabbit hole of mysticism and religion and philosophy. And I remember those tangent lines, like remember exponential change? Like we are in a moment of exponential change where if this is happening to me, I am sure it is happening to so many other humans on this planet. So many other people are up late at night wondering how to bring their dreams into reality, wondering how to ride this wave. And I want to be in community with you. I want to create a space where we can do this together, where we can support each other and not conform to one another, and not try to bridle this horse and figure out what it's going to look like to be holy. I mean, none of that. Just an intention to create some safe space where we can take breaks and rest and hear encouragement, and hopefully maybe join up and support each other on some of our crazy schemes to do new things in the planet. That seems useful to me. That seems like what New Church life can be. Seems like the kind of church, Helen Keller came and spoke to our denomination a couple times, and the last time she was very critical of the New Church. And one of my wonderings is like, what would have happened after that talk that she gave if a small group of Swedenborgians had gone up to her and said, oh, we love what you shared and we agree with you, and how could we collaborate? I think of my suggestion in some ways as like what I would have said to her. And I would have said this, and I don't know, I think she would have taken me up on it, possibly, to make room to, be in community together, to find a couple New Church women who would go live in her house and talk about take walks and talk about the spiritual world. Who knows what we could have gotten up to with Helen Keller had we extended a hand. So we're having a birthday party. The first dream of this new collaborative that I had early on was that we would celebrate Helen's spiritual birthday on March 3rd, and that this would be a way to gather us together and begin this collaborative, to celebrate that day when Annie and Helen first met, and the powerful exchange of these two humans, the way that they created connectivity, but living connectivity that then had so many other positive blessings for not just those two humans, but so many other humans. That feels like a fitting day to celebrate this new collaborative, because so much of what I dream about in what we might do is making connections between one another, being in conversation, about this moment and the wave that so many of us are experiencing, the wave of life, what we're coming to know about life, from our diverse perspectives. There's so much resonance from all of our diverse perspectives. And it feels like on the one hand, it's become very difficult to talk to each other from our diverse perspective because our perspectives have gotten more and more diverse. We have so many different languages to talk about this life that is living us. And historically, our different languages have not got along. They've all been in competition. They've all been in competition with one another. And we've been very interested in articulating the differences and parsing them out. And there's been conflict and I think so many of us, in smaller ways, we're bridging those divides. I mean, all of our bookshelves have, I'm guessing, spiritual texts from the East and the West, and I think our brains are evolving to the point where we can hold those nuances a little bit more graciously, where we can listen to each other. And I think so many of us are. I mean, I'm really interested in what's your story. You're a human being. So am I. Hey. Yeah, I have a different context. I speak maybe a different language or have a different spiritual lineage, but I need to eat and sleep and take baths and birth children just like you. What does your inner experience feel like? What can I learn from your experience, and what can you learn from me? I really think it's time for us to find each other again, to be our very diverse selves, but to listen from this unity that is now, I think, for so many of us, clearly our brains cannot argue against it anymore. Our brains have been given quantum physics and all of these other, we've seen the Earth from the moon. Like, our brains get that we're all unified on some level. Even those who are, seeking to damn others and dominate on some level are doing that because they recognize they have to keep their power amongst this unity. So, the unity is pretty obvious, and the question is, what are we going to do with the unity? How are we going to operate within it? Are we going to keep fighting? Or are we going to find ways to hear each other and to talk about the most essential things and find new ways to live on this planet that are different, like radically different from the ways we have been living? Everything we've been doing up till now for the last so many hundred years has been really molded by our egos, our ego efforts, and by our faith and our understanding that there is a right and a wrong that's handed down that we must conform to. If we're really going to make this shift and start to recognize the law written on our hearts, the kingdom of heaven within, if we're really going to start to honor the way we feel and be attentive to our actual needs in any given moment and to be empathetic, I mean, it's going to just change everything. It's got to change everything. And we're in that process of change right now. So it seems like it'd be useful to talk about how it's going, to gather together and just be open and confused and faithful. And anyway, that's the vision for the Helen Keller Spiritual Life Collaborative. It's a bit amorphous. There's something to this unifying set of values that I call be loved, be honest, be useful, that does feel like a part of what's coming into being. That was very much a intuitively received motto that I have really been embodying in my day-to-day life, and that I think has some legs to make space where we stay focused on the most important things. Because man, we do like to go off on tangents. And if we're going to be coming together from all our diverse perspectives, we got to have some unifying intentions. I think these three are pretty useful. They're pretty, to me, they get at the what's most important. What does it mean to be loved? How do we love? What does love feel like? How do we do it? How do we feel it? How do we express it? What's true? What is the truth about our experience? How do we get more honest with our experience, which is going to be so important if we're going to begin to live more authentically and from our hearts, and really let this tidal wave of life flow through us. We've got to if it's going to happen for others as it's happening for me, there's going to be turmoil as your ego fights this process. And we got to be honest about that. We got to be honest about our internal conflicts and our pain. And, my last podcast was, it's time to stop being afraid. Our egos are still going to be afraid. How are we going to feel fear and do it anyway? How are we going to feel the emotions of our little self, of our natural self, with all of its survival needs and emotions and concerns? How are we going to care for that being while stepping into this kind of connection to a deeper reality? That's going to require honesty. I mean, it's the only path to get there, truthfully. If we're not honest with our own, if we're not taking seriously our own experience and naming it, at least to ourselves, we're never going to deal with it. We can't deal with things until we notice them, until we name them, until we accept them. So honesty is so important. And then from there we can figure out what's useful, what actually matters. It feels to me like a lot of the things, especially us spiritual types have been interested in, are entertaining and interesting, but maybe not that useful. I sort of perceive that many of the conversations in the spiritual community, especially around what we believe or what we think will happen after we die, or what, there's maybe a little tiny part of that does change the way we live now. But a lot of it is kind of mental play. It's sort of, it can be a way to dissociate from our actual experience now, to kind of settle into these realms of wondering and imagining, sort of oh, you believe that? Well, who cares? Who cares what you believe about something? We all have so many different beliefs about what's going on in any given moment. And it matters insofar as that belief is affecting how you feel about a situation and how you live. So, I mean, beliefs do matter a lot to us. And I'm not saying not to take them seriously. We should take them seriously. We should really consider, what are the things that we believe? That's a big part of this work, is to realize that, oh, I hold a lot of beliefs that have been shoved down my throat because of the history of patriarchy and white supremacy in this country. Maybe I should question those. Maybe I don't want to keep those around. And perhaps there are other beliefs that are more resonant with reality and can provide solace and space. I mean, our beliefs are important insofar as they affect how we live. But it's not just a mental exercise. It can't be. And to come back from this, it feels like many of us have been on a mental journey We've all really, I mean, that's what the evolution of the last few hundred years has really been about, has been the expansion of our intellect and our minds and our ability to reason and compute. And it's been incredible. It's culminated in the development of AI, so that really we don't have to do that anymore. AI can do that. We don't have to keep, you know, reconfiguring the wisdom of the past to, I don't know, convince each other of anything or become schooled in anything anymore. Now the job is to come back into our bodies, back into our emotions, back into our physical form, back into our lived experience, which is a precious thing that AI so far doesn't have. It's a precious thing. It's a holy opportunity to be an organic being on this planet. And it's time to be fully embodied and fully here. And that's what I want to do. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'd like this collaborative to be and to do. And I think one of the things I'm sorting out right now that's really important for me is I need to, so much of being a minister in a negative sense is you're sort of a salesman for a thing, like your job is to grow this thing. How are you, and I mean, it comes from a good place. Again, it's like, this church has blessed me. This community has blessed me. I want it to bless others. I want to grow it. I mean, it is, there's a positive and a negative correspondence to that orientation. The negative part of it, though, for me, that's really, I think, becoming problematic, and I spoke about this a bit in the last podcast, is the idea that that dynamic just, it activates my ego. So it activates my, well, if I'm the salesman, I better do it right. And I better do it in a way that makes sense to the people I'm selling it to and the other people who are on the sales team. And, it keeps me from speaking more authentically and living more authentically. And so I think there's been some tension around, I started this Substack, Worship is Life, to share my experience of worship as life. And I think I've done that. And I think it's gotten a bit mushed up with, well, what's the Helen Keller Collaborative, and what's my blog, and what is my voice, and how does my voice fit into the collaborative? And this is just a point of tension. I don't have clarity about it yet, but I just want to name that I'm holding it, because it's very important to me that whatever this new thing that's being birthed into the world is, I don't want to dominate this new thing. I don't want it to just be about my story and my way of thinking. And maybe be loved, be honest, be useful even maybe that's my trinity and it doesn't fit for other people. I don't know. I'm very open to what God might want to do with this project. And there's very different humans who are showing up to participate in it, who probably with different perspectives, and we haven't, it's still unfolding. So I think it's just really important for me to have these two tracks right now, to be in my own individual growth journey. And I want to share it with others. My whole, in my 20s and 30s, all I wanted to read were people's spiritual memoirs about their journey. And I wanted to know the details. I wanted to know the nitty gritty. So I know there are people out there that care about that. And so I want to share that experience, because I just don't have anything else to hide. I want to be transparent, and I really feel, I know that would have helped my 18-year-old self to hear my story now. So I want to share that. I think it's useful for me. It's fun for me. It's probably useful for others. And I want to be very transparent of who I am as a member of this collaborative, of this community. I want to do that work. And that work is hopefully will help me show up to the collaborative, but it is not the collaborative. The vision of the collaborative is something bigger. and it includes all our stories, and it includes all our questions and ways of being. And it includes this, I don't know, it's bigger than me. I'll just leave it at that. So if you've been watching what I've been up to and kind of maybe confused, maybe this makes a certain degree of sense. And if you've listened this far, I really hope you're coming to our event at the beginning of March. I hope you register. And again, it's all virtual coming to. You don't have to go anywhere. You'll just get a bunch of emails with talks to listen to. There will be a live Zoom on Saturday that where we'll all kind of sync up in time and to reflect on this journey, the formation of this collaborative and what it might be. And I hope it will be I hope it will another part of the bursting process. I hope I pray that my anxious ego will start to chill out a little bit and trust what's coming into being. I pray that other people who are feeling this wave of energy in life, who maybe are inspired to connect and collaborate with more people, who maybe like feel themselves, maybe if you can resonate with what I'm saying and you feel yourself growing, and maybe you're lonely like me. I mean, it does, I get this impression when I watch people online that like they're doing amazing things and they're kind of isolated. Maybe that's not true. Maybe you've all found your communities and I'm just the only one. But some of you must be isolated. I can't be totally alone. And maybe you'd like to collaborate, to, in very simple ways. Maybe there's a book you want to read with other people, or maybe there's a question you want to ask. I don't know. It just feels like the sky's the limit, and we have all the resources we need with technology right now to connect and find each other. And it feels like there's this another element of this moment, this pressure since the election is we need each other. We need to be bound together in a deeper way, so that we can act and move together as one, so resources can move between us and support. And I really feel like we need to find ways to do that embody this new paradigm, when we're not all trying to act in one way with one ideology or one doctrine or one practice, but instead where we're really trying to be in authentic relationship with each other. And I think if Be Loved, Be Honest, Be Useful has anything going for it, it's a frame for how to be in right relationship with each other, how to navigate the inevitable conflicts, because I know there will be conflicts in this new collaborative effort, but there'll be opportunities too. I mean, that's how creation happens, is through the meeting of opposites. And if we can have an attitude of willingness to grow and change and see ourselves, I mean, I think it could be pretty great. I think it is pretty great already in the small ways that it started to manifest. And I'm excited to see what more might come into view. So I guess that's it for me. And it's been an hour and 1 minute. That is definitely enough talking. I pray that I'm able to go to sleep now. I pray that you were able to follow some of what I shared. I pray that this is helpful to this endeavor, and I pray that I continue to be a worthy participant or vessel in this moment, in this life. All right. Good night, friends.
And I love it when we both are in